All right, so I have a question for Ben from Julia. Well, the way that I would approach it, Julia, in terms of creating the form, would actually be in plan, right? And would actually start with a 2D and then probably extrude. Now, I will show you that there is a bend command in the Rhino. Yes, correct. So Julia says, I drew it out, so I want to know if you can bend it when it's already a solid shape. And the answer is yes, there is a bend command on Rhino. We just have to take a look at to how it performs, how it acts. Sometimes it acts a little bit different than I guess the results that we have here on the screen or on the catalog. Right, so sometimes it acts a little bit different, but there is. So I'll start with that, right? So let's say maybe bend, and it says that it's starting with well, yeah, I think it does. Right? Yeah, so base volume. It's starting with the one of these. I'm calling the butter stick, right? The 16th unit, right? So it actually we have right here, right? The base volume is this guy right here. All right. So we have our figure over here in the Rhino world. Let me go ahead and make maybe another copy so we can play with that. So if I select this fella right here and I go to the top view right here, and if I'm not mistaken, there should be a bend command on the on Rhino. And but let's see how it acts. Sometimes it acts a little bit differently, right? So select the objects to bend. And so there it is. Start of the spine, right? So that would be the spine for the bend. And I can try it a number of ways, but I'm going to pick the midpoint to midpoint, right? And then notice that I can start doing this, right? So I can start doing this. And then notice that up here on the top, right, it has, again, as it is Rhino, um, Rhino common, more options, right? So we can create a copy. Actually, let's try to make a copy so that we keep the original. Now, you'll see that right now, rigid is set to no. Right, let's see what happens if we actually change that, right? So notice that it's bending, right? But you know it's a rigid way, right? Now we also have symmetric, right? Which again, it's not really doing much, right? Preserve structure, right? We have certain components rather, but you see that that's kind of what happens, right? I mean, it doesn't really communicate what we want to do. It's more like rotating, right? Even if now if we remove the rigid, you know, you'll see that it creates that. But let's take a look, right? I mean, if we go to the 3D version of this, it doesn't quite resemble what we're going after, does it? I mean, it's not like the book is the most explicit source there is either, right? I mean, it's not like it's telling us you should do it this way or that way. And I guess that's where the book is interesting as a resource because it really isn't a modeling catalog. Well, it really isn't a how to model book. it's just a catalog of forms, and it doesn't really specify, and it doesn't get into how you should draw this, or even what should you use to draw them. And even I would argue that even some of the operations, the names can be, I guess, interchangeable, or they're not constrained to that form. What do you mean, Munoz? Well, I mean, I could probably start looking into this operation right here as maybe breaking, or you know, I guess bending for me does imply some sort of a curvature, right? I mean, this for me in the Rhino world is a little bit more what I would consider a bend. I guess this would be sort of a rigid bend, right? But still, you know, it's kind of, I guess you could use multiple words to describe what's actually going on here in this page. And what I'm trying to get at is that the commands and the actions that perhaps we're used to in the Rhino world or modeling realms won't necessarily match the actions, operations that the catalog brings forth, right? I mean, that it actually discusses in its pages, right? And why do I bring this up? Because really, the how do we model this? Just like I mentioned this multiple times, modeling is I guess is an art, it's a craft. So there could be multiple ways that you could achieve this result. Okay, now let's maybe look into what some of those are. So going back to this operation of bending, right, and trying to actually draw this form right here, the way that I would actually draw the final result, right, the final result would be actually in plan, right? So I would actually draw probably a rectangle, right, as a curve that gives me the top view equivalent of its 3D base volume, right? What we're calling the base volume. And then from there, I would then try to analyze or rationalize what this bend angle is, which is this guy right there, right? So is this bending, 45 degrees, 30, whatnot, right? So I can do that, right? So I can actually maybe even mimic whatever we have right here, right? So let's say that this is the bend, right? So, maybe I can, I'm trying something kind of funky right here, but, let's say that I want to bend it, right? And it doesn't even mention, right, where is this bending? I guess we can deduct or assume that it's bending from the midpoint, right? From the midpoint of that part of the butter stick, right? So we can assume that it's bending from the midpoint, right? So the way that I would approach this would be to find its midpoint, maybe draw a line from there, align that midpoint with that origin right there, rotate, and rotate, and we could probably do these together. So if I copy, just see, right? So this is what I would do. I would maybe kind of like do that, right? And I would then rotate these two lines right here from there to there. How much? Well, let's see. I have written rather 44 because I was just making stuff up, but which don't make stuff up. But if you actually look underneath right here, there's this area that as I rotate, right, it's giving me a degree. Right, so right now it's at a 35. right now it's at a 26.33, right? So I'm kind of eyeing that angle that I copied from the catalog. So I'm just gonna call it 30, right? And I think it should actually be at minus 30 degrees, right? So I have that right there, right? So I can then, do a line, right, from here to here, so that I can offset it, right, this line, a distance of the other half, right, which is that half right there, right, so that this length is the same as this length right here, all right. That's what I'm making out from the catalog. And then of course I would have to clean this up, right, by hitting right. I would have to clean this up, hitting extend, right, and connect that right there. Get rid of this, and then from there I continue cleaning. Right, I trim this out, and I use this right here, these two lines right here, to continue trimming. Right, so I'm gonna get rid of this, get rid of that. Right, so I have my bend, mimicking, what's going on right here on the catalog. Right, and I have that right there. Right, now if we go into our 3D view, you can then observe that, and from there, very, very simple, right? We can extrude. Well, actually, let me go ahead and copy this curve so that we keep it for our records, keep the receipt. So we can then extrude curve, right? And I'll do that. Make sure that I solid to yes, and I extend that there, right? And again, ojo guys, watch out, right? So, and this is what I'm going to talk about more today. I have achieved the end result, right, which is the bend. Next, we're going to talk about how to actually diagram this sequence of operations, which is different from the actual modeling part. So I think that this is actually a really good exercise as well, to start separating how you model versus how you design, perhaps, right? And actually, I think it's a good idea that to start, explore the philosophy that your modeling skills should not drive, or how much does your modeling methods influence and not only influence but determine your designing actions, or designing gestures, if you will, right? So that's how I would approach, and here this guy should be on a different layer. Maybe let me go ahead and put myself on that layer right there. So I think this is a really good example, right, of again what maybe the maybe we can do a kind of a line right here, right, of what the command, right? So this is the Rhino command bend. Right, what the Rhino command does, which is again that, or this right here. So this is the Rhino command. Versus what actually it's the modeling on part, right? So this was the model part, and as you noticed, I used the number. It was more than one action to draw this bend, but it wasn't an immediate bend, right? So sometimes some of the Rhino commands will be exactly the modeling or the operative part of the model, but it doesn't always will be that case. So in this case, in order to achieve the bend, I actually had to start from a 2D line. Now, that's not the only way though that you could do this, right? It really isn't, and you can complicate it as much as you want, right? So again, that would be my first approach into it. You know, for example, I'm kind of curious if I could do this, right? And there's also a split face command. Let's see, I can maybe split this face in half. I'm not sure how this is gonna work, guys. So just I'm just thinking out loud right here. But another method that I'm pondering, right? I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that this is gonna work until I try it, right? So I copied this form, right? And now I split it, right? But I don't really think it's gonna work the way that I think it will, right? But let's see. I don't know. So I'm splitting it. I'm splitting all of its faces, right, in half, right? So it's still one single object. It's just that now I have created like these creases on its faces. So I don't know. Now if I control shift select this portion right here and I move it, right? Let's say I do that. You guys tell me, right? I'll clean my screen right here. I'll come back up. Is this? Well, I would. It's cute, right? I mean, it's different. So I guess a not so avid modeler or 3D modeler or drafter or designer or architecture students might be, well, good enough, right? It's bent, right? It's whatever. It's bent, but it's not the same, right? I mean, we can actually see from the end result, especially in its top view right here, that this face right here maintains its relative perpendicular angle to the surfaces around it, right? So this actually retains this 90-degree angle right here. Right now we have this ridiculous angle right here, and just like Pablo mentioned, it is skewed. Now, again, this all tests a little bit our modeling skills and abilities, because okay, I could also be okay if that's the case. I also know that I could also draw a line, right? Okay, trying to fix this drawing right here. I could draw a line that is perpendicular to that face right there. And again, since I'm an expert, I'm not saying that I am, but someone might say like, oh, I got this, right? I know that I can control shift select that edge right there, just the edge, and I can move it from there to there, and then you'd be like, okay, so what's up, right? I mean, is that good enough or not? And again, we still see that there's some differences, right? I mean, there's still see some difference because yeah, we took care of that angle, but there's still something funky going on right here, right? I mean, we still see that the bend actually is acting this way. So you see how it starts bringing different problems. So you tackle up, it's like a whack-a-mole, right? I mean, so you solve a problem in here, but then it creates another problem, or you solve a problem ignoring another problem. And again, I could actually argue that it could be done, right? I would just need to find this perpendicular line right here, and I would have to kind of move this guy right here and do something like that. But again, it's not accurate, right? I mean, now we start seeing that not only have I not achieved the same angle, but I've also started messing with I think it graphically shows the angles, right? I mean, the angles are starting to be a little bit funky, right? So that for me would be an example of a bad modeling technique, right? A bad judgment. Because if what we're after is just the form itself, right? The formal interpretation of the bend action, not the bend command, the bend action, I would actually argue that this could be achieved in a much more precise way by starting on a 2D way, or a top view, 2D, drawing it from there and extruding it from there, right? That would be my take. I could also see other takes on that. But you know, good question, Julia. And yes, you're welcome. And Karina, would you do the same thing for split? Well, let's take a look at split. Probably, I mean, probably would have to be something something similar. Correct. That's another really good example, right? And I'm actually I'm really happy that we're doing this exercise, right? I mean, it's just an exercise that I've been wanting to try, and I know we tried it in my studio, one of my studios recently, right? With a few of you guys in this class, but we didn't really get into it as actually as a more introductory level, right? I mean, it's kind of like I just ask you guys to interpret these forms and just do what you can, right? But now we're actually taking the time to analyze this. And correct, right? Yeah, we did this in Studio 2. But now we're actually, to begin with, now you guys know more about modeling. Yeah, so we analyze them and then we model them, but now we're taking the time to actually, you know, learn a little bit more about the theory behind them, So yes, Karina, let's take a look. Right? I mean, I love this one, split. Right? So again, it seems that we're working with one of our base volumes. I think I'm gonna pick this guy right here. I mean, I think, or maybe I don't know if it's doing the half. Or yeah, so it's probably doing the half. I don't know, guys. What do you think? Is that a half or is that a quarter? I think that's a quarter, or is that a half? I don't think it actually matters. Let's pick a quarter. All right. So pick the quarter. Now I'm gonna do a rectangle. Right? How would you do this? Well, you know, I mean, let's think out loud, right? So I mean, I bring it out there. I kind of liked it that it was right we'll leave it there, right there. I guess I'll just switch this layer to pink right there, right? And what are we doing, right? Well, we're splitting it. See that right here. And again, I would start rationalizing this in a 2D way first, right? I mean, so again, I think one of the first things that stands out for me is that there's this line of symmetry, right? I mean, we're trying to find that center line there. Right? So, okay, I can start doing this right here. So I'm gonna bring this line over there, right? It also seems that we are getting this center line right here, all right? So, okay, so you can start kind of doing that right here. Right, so do that. Okay, good. Now, so it seems that we're now what happens if I draw a rectangle? Right, so I draw a rectangle right here. I'm not sure if you guys can see it. It's that guy right there, because this is what I'm actually going to start using to do the split. Right, let's do the split. So I'm going to rotate it, go back right here. So remember, I have a, I'll move this out here so you can see both this and this, right? So it's almost like there's a quadrant over here, which is going to be, and it actually is pointed out right here. Look, guys, there's an arrow right there, right? It says like, hey, that thing is going to split out, right? Okay, so I actually have right here a form, right? It's in yellow, right? And well, I can do this, right? So it's there, it's drawn. I just, hopefully I can see it right there. I can type rotate. But we're missing something, right? I mean, we're missing an angle. But let's use the same one, 8 degrees, right? For right now. So I'll do that. rotate from there to there. Right, I'm going to do a 30-degree, minus 30-degree rotation. I get that right there, and then I'm gonna copy this again. Let's just keep a copy of our receipts, as I like to call it, right? And you know, you can bring this guy over here, right? And now what do? Well, we do a number of cleaning, right? I mean, we do a sequence or operation of cleaning actions right here. Whoops, we do need that. So I can actually just select all of this, right? Press trim and start cleaning things up. Right? I mean, so I can start doing this, 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 and that, of course. And yeah, of course, you, right? And I start getting that, right? I can do match layer. These are the layers that I want to change, and I select that guy right there. I can copy this object right here, right? And I can select it, grid curve, and we go back to where we started, right? And I would achieve that right there. Let's take a look, maybe in its top view, right? So how we started, right? Or maybe, you know, kind of like there and there, right? So that's kind of how I would approach this band, right? Whoops. Right. That's how I would approach it, Karina. Because again, there can be multiple ways of doing this, honestly. And again, the catalog, the little catalog that I'm holding in my hand right now, and the one that is on my screen right now, it's not, the catalog is not a modeling how-to, right? This is not a well, in my opinion, it's not a okay. So you press this or you type this and you rotate and you so it's just end result actions, right? I want something that at the end looks bent, right? Yes, you are welcome, Karina. You're welcome. So that's the idea behind this exercise, right? I mean, that we start rationalizing some of these actions. Okay, so that's the answer for that. The great questions, guys. So these are the kind of questions that I would like to well, I mean that I would like to assist you guys with. Is there any other ones that maybe you got into that you know you were particularly unsure of how to achieve or model? No, all of them made paper. Yeah, paper. Just, paper. What's going on, Andrea? What about paper? Find it. What's the like? What's your particular question? Like, what exactly about paper? That one's a fun one.
Mr. Munoz, I did it. I made the 2D lines from the figure from the base volume, and then I offset the one of the top line, offset it to the inside, and I made a loft, but I'm not sure if that's correct.
Well, I would have to see it in order to kind of understand what's going on. But why don't I give it a shot here on my screen, and then we can compare. You'll let me know if it was kind of similar to what you tried. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
All right. All right. So base volume. I think the base volume is another one of this one. So I'm just gonna copy it right here. you see why it is important to, well, I mean, it is important to use our base volumes, right? So I'm going to rotate this guy right here from, well, I rotate 3D, rotate this guy. Wait. Oops. All right. So we stand this guy up. All right. So I can start actually from the same kind of method that I have here. So I have, let's measure this guy right here just for reference, right? So this guy measures 4 inches, right? So maybe I'm gonna start treating this as that, right? So so let's say that this is the half, and then we have the half of the half, which is the quarter, and then the other half of the half, right? So that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4 halves, you know, which again, I'm trying to match. I'm particularly trying to get where this point is right here, right? Why? Well, because if I start with that, I can copy this guy over here. Wait, I said copy. Right, so we make a copy of that guy right there. Whoa. I can then go the same technique, right? I'm gonna use actually the same technique. So I'm gonna draw a rectangle right there. Now I'm gonna use that rectangle. Let's see, is it better if I move this rectangle? I'm gonna maybe, well, I'm gonna copy this rectangle right here, right? Or square, I guess, right? And then what happens actually if I make a copy, right, vertical, right, that is actually 1 inch up, right? Remember, it's not that we're using, you know, inches or feet or, you know, I mean, particularly, but we're using proportion, right? So again, remember, I'm trying to establish this proportion right here. So again, and that's why it's nice to use the grid, right? Because again, if I measure my original base volume, right, I know that the height is 4 inches, right? So this height right here is 4 inches. Right, so I know that I can split that in 4, right? So that would be 1, 2, 3, right? And I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait a second. Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm trying to rationalize the proportions that are found on the end result, which is this taper right there, right? So next, I can draw another rectangle on this top portion right here. I can copy it, right, from this point into this point right here, and move this maybe a little bit out here. Okay? And I think this is what Andrea, you were maybe, I think this is what you're talking about. I think then you can then offset this form right here. So if I do a distance of this right here, so we find that this this base volume is actually a 4/2, right? So let's see what happens if I actually offset this one unit. I'm not going to say inch, right? 1 unit. So then I do an offset, right? Of is the 1 going to work? No, a 1 is too little, so it's actually not going to do it, right? So there's an error. Let's actually do an offset of distance of 0.5. Right? We can do that. And then I'm gonna maybe copy all of this. Whoops. Copy it all over here. Right? And then I can get rid of this guy right here. And remember, guys, the loft command is pretty. It's well, it's very it's diverse. Let's call it that way. So I can then from there do a loft, right? From that curve to that curve to that curve right there. Notice that it's giving me the path. In this case, it's not important, but it's there. At some point, it will actually be helpful. And I create this, right? Now notice that, again, it's not perfect, right? And that actually, that I know that we can fix. And again, this is again where it tests your modeling skills. But I think I'm 80% sure that if we actually click on this right here and we actually do straight sections, bam, right? Bam. And again, by the way, you can play with them, right? I mean, the loose, uniform, and well, normal, or even the tight will look different than these straight sections right there, right? So if I click yes, right, I get that, right? And then what do we do now? Last part. Well, we tap it, and let's turn off its ISO curves, and that's how I would that would be my final answer. I'll lock it in, Andrea. I don't know. Is that similar to what you attempted? How did you get? Okay. How did you get the mini menu for loft options? Well, within the loft, right? So the loft menu appears when you type loft, right? You select the curves that you want to loft. You enter. You see that it gives you that little preview right there. Just hit enter again, and then that's where this menu will appear, Marcus. Yeah. Okay, you're welcome, Marcus. All right, Andrea. So I don't know, Andrea. Does that help? Does that answer maybe your question, or maybe complements the process or the actions that you were maybe trying, and maybe you were just missing one or two maybe different different components? Okay, great. And let me show you how complicated this can get, right? I mean, I can see someone actually, you know, not knowing as much as you guys know, right? And maybe someone might know, like, okay, well, I don't know that I can actually love this and get straight sections, but maybe someone does know that you can actually create surfaces from 3 to 4 points, right? So I can actually I can see someone maybe doing this a longer route, which would be to actually create each of these faces individually, right? So I could see someone going this route, right? I mean, once you have the curves, you can actually start completing this this little model doing as I'm doing right here. But not only it's more time consuming, right? Because look at how many faces I have to draw. Right? Look at how many faces I have to draw. But it actually can lead to errors, right? It can actually lead to errors because sometimes we're not snapping. Remember that we're not snapping to the right point. And it's just a mess, guys. Remember that later on there's Boolean differences that we need to do. Later on there's trimming that we need to do. And when faces and edges are not aligning, it's just problems. All right, it's just problems. So I have that. But if you do it correctly, just like anything, right? I mean, if you take the time and you do it, accurately, it could be successful, right? Or planar surf. Planar surf is another one, right? I mean, the planar surface. Well, I mean, I think that's like, for example, I don't know how would I use planar surface to do it, but let's see. Select planar surface curves to build surface. I don't know, would that work? I think probably what Dante's saying, that you probably would have to maybe delete this right here. Maybe you probably need to explode this, right? And then maybe you can get a planar curve, a planar surface, right? I don't know if maybe this would help right there. Well, I don't know about inner surface, but again, it could be, it just be on my end that I don't maybe master that command as well as I do other ones, right? But I guess I just wanted to illustrate again the diversity in methods and approaches to each of these actions and operations, and that really there's multiple answers and steps to do this. Okay, that's awesome, guys. You guys are making me wake up, so that's great. Any other questions? Particularly to how to model anything. This is your chance, guys. This is your chance. Become an avid 3D modeler. And I guess big part of this is that, again, and you're gonna hear this. I know at least as a faculty, art school, we talked about it. Right? We talk about it a lot, right? I mean, how can we start? Again, what is one of the first commands that we start using to make three-dimensional forms, right? I mean, what's one of the first commands that we just are so fixated with? Well, it's the extrude command, right? I mean, we just start extruding everything, and that's how we start giving a volume and depth to a lot of our initial forms. But that starts looking kind of boring sometimes. I mean, and honestly, the extrude command is just a command out of many commands that we should be using to develop all sorts of forms. So that's why this book right here is testing our not only modeling skills but modeling proficiency, right? I mean, again, there's a long way and a shorter way probably of doing something, right? So if there is no questions, no more questions in terms of the puncture, maybe puncture. Is that an action? Puncture. Okay. I actually was trying this one. I remember at what point. And yeah, it's a really interesting one right here. Couldn't get it. All right. Okay. What were you using? What commands were you using, Pablo? Just curious. What was your game strategy? You're using extrude, all right. And that's it? And drawing, I was using extrude and drawing a rectangle on top of the surface to try and do it inverted, if that makes sense. Maybe. Wait, what am I trying to do? Yes. Okay, let's take a look. I'm trying to set the base volumes here. All right. So we have, according to me, right, a base volume of half and a base volume of a quarter. No, probably like an eighth, right? So I have those right here. So this one in particular, there's many ways, but again, a big part of this, guys, is to actually do the analysis first, right? Is to actually rationalize what's going on here, and by looking at the drawings, right? Even first is to start drawing it by hand, right? I mean, I think maybe even that would help. but let's see. So the way that I see this right here is that this point stays, right? Now this point right here has gone down, right? And it seems that this one as well, right? And it seems that this distance right here is the same as this one right here. And it seems that this point went down as well, but more. So that if I look into a side view of this face right here, I would get something, right? Maybe, and again, I'm doing my best right here to try, kind of like that, right? That would be that face right there. This face right here would be the same, except that mirrored, right? So it would be something like that, right? And the other one, the other one right here would be the same, but this point would be even higher. Why do I bring this up? Well, because the way that, again, your humble server right here would maybe approach this, right? I would maybe start by doing a rectangle that actually creates the base right there. I can start measuring this distance right here just so that I get a sense of the unit. So that's a 2, right? So I can do a line, this end to that end right there. And again, right, guys? Right? Watch out. So let me go to maybe ghosted, right? We just, as part of my analysis, I have determined of my rational analysis of this form, I have determined that this point is going to stay there. This point right here and this point right here are both going to go down an equal distance. And this point right here is going to go down further distance, right? So in a way, I want to maybe split this again into quarters, right? So that maybe, so that's 1, that's half. So these two, I'm gonna bring them down 0.5, right? 0.5, 0.5, and then maybe this one right here, 1.5 or something like that. Let's try that, all right? So what do I mean? Let's maybe select all of this, the box, copy it over here, right? And I can do, again, a line. I can make sure that the line is vertical, right? So I would bring it vertical from there. Right? And I'll do a 1.5. Right? I'll do that. And copy this guy from there to there. And then I can do another line, right? That it only, that it's, oops, vertical as well. That it's 0.5 maybe. And I start doing that right there. Then I can, again, maybe use this handy dandy tool right here. And start kind of creating this. And start creating that right there. And I start doing this right here. I'm going to maybe move this out of the way, right? So I can join all of these faces right there, and let's see if cap would work. It doesn't, right? Would it work if I do merge all faces and then cap it? Nope, it doesn't. And I'm actually tell you why cap doesn't work. Is because this probably this weird angle that is happening right here, because it's not only one cap, but it's actually 2 caps, right? So, right, because right, so if we do this, if I do the 4 right there, it gets that weird bend, right? Which I guess is not that bad for right now. And I can then come over here and then do this guy right there. I can select that can copy it right here, and then I can join, and then merge all the faces, and then get rid of the ISO curves, and I have that right there. But I would actually even argue that that's not quite right. I would actually maybe argue that perhaps even better would be to actually split that half portion into two triangles, like that. Okay, so if you create the solid trim cab, you can create the first piece, then extrude the second piece together. Yeah, sure. You know, I guess that's what I'm trying to get at right now. That, you know, I mean, methods is how do you make a model, right? I mean, the way that, you know, you make a model may not be the same way that your classmate makes a model, right? So it's all about technique, right? So we can share that. Then I can, you know, copy this guy right here, you know, copy it there and copy it there, and then I can move it from its mid to the mid, and from the mid to this mid, and I have that, and I can move this guy. Whoops, not that guy. Mid to mid, from mid to mid. Okay, so but still, guys, that's not, it's not done yet, right? Okay, it's not done yet because there's still if I look at this in the shaded view, right? I mean, you, and this is actually really good that it comes up, right? You see how you guys see, right? You see how this form right here, if you look at its edges, do you see that? Can you guys see that that's a different color than the face? The edge is brighter than the face, and that happens again right here. Notice that again, just looking forward, right? I mean, into usually most of the time when you're gonna model, it's not a good idea when we don't get those lines right here. So there should be a line right here that it's telling me that the geometry is breaking, right? That there's a vertice right there, but it's not there because technically the forms are not yet one, right? So let me show you guys what I mean, right? Because once we do that, and notice how I messed up over here, right? This is what I mean, that different techniques are gonna link and have different errors, right? You see how actually I kind of do a good job over here. It's okay, I can control shift select the vertex right there and move it manually from there to there. Boom, there we go, right? And again, all of you guys are now experienced modelers, and you guys know that all of those little things really kind of hurt later on the road. Now, as I was saying, I'm not still done yet with this one right here. Well, I guess for the tutorial or the process, I guess it's there. But I would actually say that one more action that I would try doing. Let's see how Boolean union works, right? Right. So nope, not really. Right. I guess what I would try to do is maybe extract. Right. I remember I was actually trying this right. So I can extract the surface right here, and whoops, let me go ahead and clean this too. I just realized that it's also nah. See, there's something weird going on right here. I don't know if you guys can see. There's like a bend, but let's see if that creates any problems on the road. I don't know if this is a glitch or why am I not being able to select it, but undo and explode. That's weird. Oh, okay. I'll leave it like that right now. Right. So I guess that's the solution right here. But what I wanted to do is extract this face right here. Extract surface. This one right here. Extract it, and then I can maybe move this up, and then I can say that I was trying to inhabit this space, and I just wanted to get those high ceilings. I would then maybe try to do a trim, right? Of you know, get rid of this, and then get rid of this right here. And so I get rid of that, and I get rid of that, and I can then move this back there. And notice that now we get those clean lines right here. Right now we get those lines there versus the ones that we wouldn't get over here. And that's going to be, it becomes sort of a problem when we're doing the make 2D command, which we'll be using. Okay. That would be my approach to that one right there. All right, guys. Good questions. Yes, you're welcome. Helped a lot. All right. I'm glad. I think again a lot about it is to first analyze it, right? I mean, again, yeah, I have a feeling that, you know, I mean, it might be very evident to begin with, right? Like, oh, okay, it's sort of an easy kind of exercise or assignment, but you know, it does have. Well, I mean, it depends which one is. Some are more complicated than other ones, right? Elaborate. I don't know about complicated, but elaborate, right? They ask for more. All right, guys. So how are we doing, guys? How are we doing with this? How many? Are you just starting? Are you just done? Getting done? I have 4. Pretty good. Okay. All right. Done, low. Okay. All right. So then that means that we should need one more. Okay. So that means that just need one more. Okay, great. So that means that we should be somewhere over here, right? And notice that there is an upload. Under our course, of course, projects. I created a new folder. I think actually this is, I mean, I don't know if you guys have looked at the calendar, but I have. And we only have like 3 more weeks of class, guys, which is kind of wild. So I'm actually thinking that this project is going to be like our last project. Just means that I'm gonna have to split it in 2 parts. And it's all, again, the living space, like the dwelling space, but you know, the little dwelling space that you're designing. But so anyway, I created this new folder, which perhaps it will turn into project 4, or actually project 3, and the other one will turn into project 4. Doesn't matter, right? But regardless of that, there's this form studies and diagrams that has the assignment right here, right? So we just need for right now screenshots of your Rhino space. Let's put it that way. I guess you can use. I guess it's nice to have 2 per page. I don't know if having the 6 per page is going to be very legible, right? I'm trying to kind of like what I'm trying to see right here. It's going to be very. I'm not going to be able to see much. So let's do. If you guys do me a favor, please, guys, let's do a. Let's do 2 of them, right? Let's do a pair per page. Per page. Okay, and so that should be 3 pages. That should be for the assignment for today, right? I think I have here end of class. It's actually, I actually set the assignment end of the day, all right, just in case there's more questions, and ultimately what I want to help you guys with is your modeling skills and your representational skills. So That's what we're after. So I want you guys to become the best 3D modelers that you can possibly make you guys in this short 2 years of your EPCC stay, so that you can have more fun with the software later on, right? I mean, the more that you understand the basic concepts of modeling and the basic operations, and operations I mean commands, the further that you will go, my friends, the further that you will definitely go. So okay guys, so let's maybe take 5 minutes. I'm recording. I'm gonna pause this one right here,